All right, everyone. I think that we're live.
Hello.
Looks like the
Hello.
little red thing says live. Welcome, everyone, to IoT Happy Hour number 38. That's crazy to even think about, but if we're counting right, 38 episodes in. I'm David Tischler, developer advocate at Balena. You guys want to say some quick hellos and introductions? And
We're going clockwise?
I'll give us, wait a minute. No, it'd have to be, yeah, we could go clockwise.
Right.
That would work. And then I'll give us a quick overview of today's agenda.
Sounds good. I guess I'm first, then clockwise. Hi, everyone. I'm Alan. I'm one of the hardware hackers here at Balena, and I'm based near Philadelphia.
John, I saw that looking
Hi,
at
everybody.
him.
I'm doing my Brady Bunch.
I saw it.
I refuse.
I'm John Finello, a technical marketing lead. And since we're talking about geography, I'm outside of Syracuse, New York.
Awesome. Phil, go ahead.
I'm Chris Crocker-White. I've had a shave. And I'm not. I was just thinking if I'm live hacking and it all goes wrong, I could pretend to be Chris, but I didn't change my name, so let's stuff that up. I'm Phil. I'm one of the balenaLabs people, and I'm going to be doing some hacking stuff, I reckon.
We're going to talk about that in 1 second. Andrew, say hello.
Hello, Andrew Nen, content wizard, making breaking stuff. Glad to be here.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, today we are talking about balenaBlocks. I meant to get some Lego blocks to use as a prop, but, well, I forgot. So, Phil, can you tell me what a balenaBlock is really quickly before we actually dive into it? What are we talking about today?
Are we not doing what's on your desk then?
Yeah, but I just want to set the tone for what we're going to be doing.
Okay,
today.
so balenaBlocks are a form of app enablement. So Balena dudes have done all the hard work to making it really easy to get devices provisioned and then apps onto your devices so that you can manage your IoT fleet. Our goal is to reduce the friction of IoT app development. So the next thing is, how do we make it easier for you to actually make apps? And that's what balenaBlocks is part of. So giving you pieces of functionality you can drop into your project so that you don't have to do it.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm excited to learn about them. I know you've got a blog post out there that describes it as well. I'll get that linked in. We'll go through a little bit of that. And then later in the episode, I think the plan is we're all going to make fun of you and heckle you while you try to do some live coding. Is that if I understand correctly, Andrew, that's the plan?
That's usually the method, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think I'm going to make a bunch of excuses up front and then try and do something, and when it fails, I can point back to those excuses. That's my plan.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm definitely looking forward to that. But yes, let's kick it off the way we normally kick it off with what's on your desk. Now, we don't have Chris today, so we're going to have to go virtual and Balena theme.
Oh, I'll do it. Oh,
you want to do it? Do you want to sing it live or do you want to play it?
No, I want to sing.
We have a recorded.
We have the thing. Yeah, I want to hit the button. Ooh.
We have a recorded version of Chris that you're welcome to use.
Okay, let's do this.
And you're going to overdub him.
Ready?
Oh, no.
Hey, you know what?
Wait, there's no...
Yeah, it's because I clicked on the thing that's not a video. So I'm going to go, do. What's on your desk?
That was pretty good.
Exactly the same.
Very good.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
And hold on a minute. Show that shirt one more time. I'm going to zoom in on you if I can. Yeah, look at that. What's on your desk shirt? And Alan, I think you might have one also.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Mine's different. I've got...
Wait a minute. Hold on. What is that? What is on there? Is that a USB stick and an SD card?
Yeah, it's from the feature about Etcher broke my SD card. Alexander made us some cool characters.
I think Phil just has his on backwards.
Oops. Yeah, it might be. I think, you should have been here last week when we were talking Etcher Pro. We did a double feature, an hour and 50
I wasn't invited.
minutes. You know what? That might have been on purpose. I'm not sure. Could have been by design. But that shirt would have definitely been appropriate last week. So
you should have invited the shirt.
Quick
tell you
call
what,
out.
if anybody like actually, you watch this episode, you learn more about blocks, you use or build your own and you show it off to us, we might should send you one of the custom swag.
Yeah,
That's not right.
absolutely.
yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
There's
We'd love a community submitted block. That would be
Yeah.
super cool.
somebody who wants to build one, get in touch with us and we can make that happen. Absolutely. All right. So who wants to go first for what's on your desk? Do we have any volunteers? If not,
Me.
I will go. Phil. All right. Go ahead, Phil. What's on your desk?
It's a 2-stage thing. Do you want to zoom in on me for a minute?
Yeah. Yep. Let me get you. I've got you.
I've got a Doody Raspberry Pi 400.
Whoa.
That.
Whoa. So I've seen those on social media, but not in real life. Tell me about it. What is it exactly?
So, I mean, it's basically a Pi 4. I think it's slightly higher clock frequency, so it's just a little bit faster. And I think the majority of the reason of that is because underneath the cover is the full size of this is a heatsink. So it's much better at dissipating its heat, and then it doesn't get throttled when it gets toasty. So they've managed to up the clock rate. But other than that, it's a Pi 4 really. The GPIO is exposed under this cover.
Whoa. Very cool.
And I really like the fact that the SD card like clicks in nicely now. Just the
neat.
little touches. Yeah, it's really neat. It's a really nice thing.
Yeah.
How's the keyboard?
Yeah, is the keyboard decent?
Yeah, it's
How's
really
the-
good. It's really good.
Are they Cherry MX? Are they?
no, they're nice and quiet.
Oh,
Phil,
And
that, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. And then, so the other things I've got, I thought I'd show on the camera.
Oh my goodness. What is this
Yeah.
I'm looking at?
Well, this is going to come in later because this is called a Ruby tag. And what this is, I thought it's probably best to show it. And what's on your desk would be a good point to do it. So it's a little puck sort of shaped disc, and it's a Bluetooth low energy beacon, but it's sending out temperature and pressure and humidity data as part of the advertising package rather than you don't have to connect to it and try and get the data from it. It just broadcasts out the data every 5 seconds. So that's Ruby. That's why I put the sticker there. And then other than that, I've got the sort of general hardware hackery things. I've got a Nano Pi. I've got a Thin, and that's doing some web browser block experiments that we can talk about later.
Right. Yep.
Under there's my Nook that I develop on. I've got a whole stack of Raspberry Pi 3s doing different things. This one's got a re-speaker hat because I'm making a digital assistant for my children because I don't really want the mainstream ones where their voices go somewhere. So I'm making my own one with Mycroft. Underneath there, I think that's a cellular modem test. There's some other things.
Desk is
Got
incredible.
BeagleBone green wireless.
dude, it's called what's on your desk, not what's in your house.
Yeah, he's hogging up all the.
It's just a bunch. I thought since I'm showing what's on my desk. Oh, look at this as well. Let me put it back.
With this.
So that Thin's
Wow.
doing some experiments with the browser block, which I put on this little touch screen, and it's
Ooh.
running WebGL experiments at the moment. So I can see, you can see like ripples appearing. So I'm trying to
cool.
find. I'm automatically testing the performance of the browser block that we can talk about later.
All right.
Nice.
Well, looking forward to hearing about that. We do have our first question already in. What is that watch, Phil?
What was that watch? Oh, it's a Garmin running watch.
Okay. Is it IoT connected? Can I push a container to it?
It's a Garmin Phoenix 5X. I shot JR. If you want to look it up.
What kind of processor is it running?
Yeah.
I don't know, Alan.
You haven't hacked
How
it
many
yet?
megs of RAM does it have?
One.
What's its addressable URL?
Go on, Alan. What was your? I know you're dying to have some sort of one-upmanship on my Pi 400.
Yeah, he's going to beat
Yeah,
that easily.
well, sorry, I couldn't help myself. I jumped the gun. I didn't realize you had so many other items on your desk, which is awesome. Good stuff. I also have the Pi 400.
Oh, it's
as
so
well.
yesterday, Alan.
I don't.
No, that's the Pi 401.
This is
slightly better
well,
than Phil's.
You mentioned the 400. I don't know if you guys have seen the Pi 800 though. And it's a little bit larger than the 400.
Oh, man.
The size comparison here. And they went a strange way with this, putting VGA and a serial port on the back of it. But
it's got a timeless color scheme as well, hasn't it? It hasn't aged a bit.
Similar, yeah. It's kind of retro looking.
And it's got built-in speakers.
It built-in speakers, and for some reason, it's only running at 1 megahertz. So
That's all you need. That's more than enough.
Driver issue, I reckon. I like that it comes in hearing aid beige.
Okay,
Hearing
I'm
aid.
just kidding. That's not a Pi 800.
I wish it was.
Yeah, it would be nice. I think it would be a little smaller, but
You can retrofit it.
Yeah,
I will do one
Pi, isn't it?
legitimate item that I do have on my desk that I've been working on recently is a little
zoomed back in.
sure little
There we go.
rover project. This is a Pi hat for creating like a LoRa node, which is what I'm doing. And this cool one, actually, they added a little OLED screen to it and a couple of buttons. It really helps make it, gives you like a way to input data or to just be able to change modes or program it really for whatever you want. And the interesting thing is,
I can see the little screen there, and I can see the buttons. Yeah, we can sort of tell. Yeah.
What do you mean program it, Alan? With 3 buttons, what are you going to do? Toggles? How are you going to program it?
You can
With your
program
little
the button to do anything.
Yeah,
Oh, I
on
see what you mean. I thought you meant code it with your little buttons.
Well, that would be an interesting project to try to do that. A little maddening, I think, but it probably gets done.
It's good enough
Scroll
for
through the
Apollo.
alphabet. But I wanted to concentrate. The interesting part is that this little board right here is the whole LoRa radio and all of the circuitry that's involved with that. It's pretty amazing that it's that little green board there that does most of the work. The rest of this is just to connect the green board to the pins.
So that's interesting because the LoRa hats that I've seen for the Pis are normally roughly the size of the Pi. So,
yeah, I think this one's made for the Pi Zero form factor. So,
right, that makes sense. Yeah,
so that's
neat.
Yeah, it's a nice size, and
That's way better than
handy.
Phil's.
How much is
it's not a contest.
Seems it is.
How much? What's the price tag?
Yeah,
How much for that thing?
I believe this is around $29, $30 or so US. And no, to answer the question, I see we have a question about this. It does not have an antenna, but it does have a I think it's micro UFL. Is that what it's called?
That's the same that's on the Nano, isn't it? It's got a micro UFO one.
I just had to buy one of those this week, actually. Yeah, they come in various sizes.
You will snap it without a doubt. As soon as you click that thing in, you'll snap it off, knowing you.
Yeah, it is.
That's toast.
There's another option on this too. The instructions tell you about the length of a wire that you can use, and you can solder a wire onto one of these pins if you don't want to use micro UFL. And depending on the frequency plan in the country that you're using this in, the length of the wire will vary slightly. So you can calculate the proper length of the wire and solder it onto one of these pins in that case.
Way cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. Anyone else? John, you have anything you want to show?
I don't have
Andrew?
anything.
No, that's
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
I have to give you my
nothing-
Eeyore face.
Oh, ready for this?
Anything.
Have y'all seen one of these? Oh, just a regular Raspberry Pi
Hang
4.
on, hold on. Let me zoom in on that.
Well, there's a good reason why. So here in the U.S., lockdown's pretty intense. I haven't been able to see my nieces, about 4 of them, 3 of them in one household, one in another. So I actually wanted to send them a little care package with a Scratch setup pre-installed. So for those of you who haven't seen that project, I'll drop it in the chat. It's setting up a Scratch server on your balena Pi, Raspberry Pi.
Yeah,
So
Raspberry
you
Pi.
can plug it in, and then the kids can mess around with some coding.
And that project works on the Pi 400 as well. So
Yeah.
that's a really good device. If you were going to buy a device to do that Scratch project and get your
Yeah.
children into coding, So Scratch is a way of drag and dropping blocks of code into a screen, into a UI, so that the application runs via that graphical way rather than writing out code. And that runs on the Pi 400. So if you got one of those, all you have to do is plug in a mouse and the TV, and it'll just rock.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I might do that because reduces the IT time, right?
Well, it's like one less thing as well, isn't it, to put somewhere, and yeah, it's really neat.
You'd be surprised. Some family, even if it's just plug the thing in, they still have to call and be like, what do you mean by it just plugs in?
When you say plug.
Yeah. which plug?
So yeah, that's what I've been working on.
Awesome.
Light work.
I will switch to patented trademark balenaCam. And the Jetson Nano is back on the desk. I pulled it down from above the front balcony where it was previously counting traffic in order to do some experimentation on building containers that include all of the NVIDIA SDK components in order to run things like Deep Stream. So far, it's been a failure. But it's a work in progress. So it's back for some container development. And balenaCam is not too blurry today for some reason. Maybe a little blurry.
Yeah.
Was the device baked from being up on your roof? Did you notice?
No, this one was not actually on the roof. This one was inside, mounted up above the door frame with the camera then pointed out. So no, this one is not fried. All right. Let's switch back real quick from balenaCam. And I think we're ready to talk about some balenaBlocks, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first and foremost, let's grab the URL to the blog post.
Yeah, I was going to display it as well because it actually
you
helps.
want to do? Okay. Yep.
We could do both.
I'm going to put it in chat for folks to be able to just simply click on. So let me drop that into chat real quick.
Cool.
And yeah, if you want to take us away, Phil, I'm ready to learn.
So we put this blog post out just before Christmas. I know Andrew and I were burning the midnight oil trying to get it out before we both went on vacation. And it's something that we've been working on probably for, 6 or 7, maybe even 8 months. And the idea is what this hero image that Alexandra made for us really exemplifies is you're making your own application and you have code that is something that you specialize in, or something that is unique to you. And then there's a bunch of other things that you probably have as dependencies, and you don't want to have to spend your time making those. So it could be something like being able to just display it on the screen or in a browser, or to have like Wi-Fi Connect. So these balenaBlocks are ways that we can make those bits for you and put them so that you can just drop them like this geezer's doing here, dropping it into his app and add functionality to your app without you having to do the work.
Geezer, I thought that was me.
It's a spry 30-something.
I don't think you're a geezer. So kind of just at a high level, what a block is, all we're doing is taking an executable and then wrapping it in some code so that, and putting it with a base image so that when it deploys to your device, it doesn't just load the executable and you still have to configure it and you still have to do all of the work to make it actually do something for you. The point of balenaBlocks is that they're opinionated in some way. So we're making an assumption on how most people are going to want to use these executables and then get it to configure itself. And provide you with an API so that you can do things dynamically with it from other blocks or from other containers on your device. So a good sort of example of that is one of the main ones that we've been working on is the browser block. And the executable, there's actually two. It's bringing in Chromium to produce a web browser, but also that will obviously need some X11 stuff so that you can, if you connect it to a display or a TV, then it will just appear, it will present it to the screen. But rather than you could just install Chromium yourself. It's not like that's incredibly difficult. We've done quite a lot of work to make sure that all of the hardware acceleration on Raspberry Pis work so that it's hardware accelerated for things like video and WebGL. And that's why I was doing that experiment earlier. But the other thing that we're doing here with the Chromium is we wrap it in a config, or in some code that does the config, so it gets the display resolution correct, so it appears on your display full screen, and then you can do things like turn the GPU on and off and tell it what URL it's going to point to. That's the main one. So those are the sort of things that we're going to use from that wrapper, so that you can configure it, and it will appear every time that device starts. That config will apply, and it will do the correct things for you. So if you think of things like digital signage, kiosk applications, point of sale applications, we have quite a few customers that do point of sale type devices, and they use the browser block to just have their website running on a device in kiosk mode, so people just come along and print tickets and buy stuff. And then we also supply an API, so if you've got another service running on that device, you can refresh the page, you can change it to another page, toggle kiosk mode on and off, and so make the menus appear, turn GPU on and off. And this is kind of like a good example of what a block is, that it provides you something that you could install yourself, but why would you want to do that? Why do you want to go through the hell of getting X11 to work correctly? And then why do you want to go through all of the ins and outs of getting kiosk mode to run and X11 and the window size and GPUs and all of that? So you don't have to do that, because you can just drop in something like a browser block. And then the rest of the blog post was talking about a couple of the other ones. Finabler is another one that we use for our Balena Fin, and then it lists the other ones that you can use, dashboarding, connector, and things that we can get into. We could talk about in a minute. But what I wanted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go, dude.
Cool. After you do that explainer, so it's pretty amazing that we're starting to create these, core functionality bits and pieces in the blocks for folks to just drop in. Mm-hmm. At this point in time, like, is it something that someone would want to just take an existing application and drop a block in, or is it easier to start from scratch? Like, where are we at in that journey?
I mean, we're doing both of those internally. So a lot of the projects that we've had out for a while, like Balena Sense, Balena Dash, we're sort of retrofitting blocks into them. And the reason we're doing that is because it reduces your surface of where you have to do updates and maintenance on your code repos.
Right on.
If we make a change to the dashboard block that we'll talk about in a minute, then that change will go across all the projects that use it, because they'll all bring in the new image when they're next deployed, rather than having to go and touch loads of code bases. So I think people should retrofit if they see that same advantage. But then if the real power really is, if you want to make an app, you want to get that app done as quickly as possible. You want to focus your energy on the bits that you understand, your bespoke code. This makes it really quicky to just bring in a bunch of functionality on top of your stuff.
Cool.
I've done that.
No, I've had that fight that he's describing with X11 and the configuration and the resolution isn't right and all of that. Yes. I mean, I've wasted countless hours just trying to get a browser to come up in the container.
Yeah,
so
it's a pain.
I think I've mostly failed at it as well. So
I mean, even the ones that aren't a pain to do, even the ones that are easy, and you are just bringing in an executable and it basically does the right thing, it's still easier to just bring in a block and that get done for you than have to go through and remember, right, what did I need to put in? And it's still quicker. So shall we go on to what I was going to do today?
You're talking about the point where we make fun of you? Is that the one?
I mean, I didn't realize that had stopped at any point, but yeah. So I showed you, before I go back into that, I showed you this Bluetooth temperature and humidity and pressure sensor.
Cool.
So normally it's got a lid. Where's my lid? It's got a lid which has got eyes. And then, so that's a waterproof enclosure, and I don't know whether the camera can get it. It's got, you can just see above the eyes, it's got that little hole.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a hole. That's what it is, David. Yeah, you're all right. What a hole is, are you?
You know what? I am familiar. In last week's episode, I showed off some work that I had done with a drill where I drilled a hole.
Oh,
so
I did see
I'm
that.
familiar.
Yeah, that was exciting. I was beside myself. So these guys amazingly came up with the same idea and drilled a hole, but they've got like a special Gore-Tex tape that allows moisture through so they can test the humidity, but they don't let raindrops through, so it fries your electronics. But what this does is it sends out a Bluetooth beacon every 5 seconds, but rather than just saying hello, I'm here, it's also saying I'm here and the temperature is and the pressure is and the humidity is. So that's what this does. And the way you normally see the results of that is if I opened, it's an app-based thing. So they've got this Roovy station. If you zoom back in on me on my phone, it's quite pretty. I know it's quite shiny. It's quite pretty, but it tells you down here in the data bit.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit of glare back, but we can see. Yeah,
you can sort of see the general idea is that it comes up with the temperature and all your values in the app, and that's great. But what if you're not here and you want to know what the temperature is at home? If you're on holiday and you want to large it up to your friends back home about how cold it is at home when you're on the beach, but also like historical data, the phone has to be near the tag to get the data and record your pretty charts of temperature over time, etc. So what I wanted to do was bring that in to a Raspberry Pi instead and use the Raspberry Pi to receive those beacons, and then we can pop it into Grafana all the things and look at your charts there. So that's what I started to do. And then I thought what I'd do is blockify the app live, and we'll see how far we get, see how easy it is to do. So on this is the Roovy tag, and they've got a GitHub repo, and thankfully they tell us how to do a Python package to bring in that data, and they even gave me a snippet of code that I could start with. So I plonked that into, let me find my stuff. Here we go. So I brought that code into here. Let's get rid of that. So that's the same code that you just saw. I plonked in, and then I did a balena push to a new app, and I did that. Oh, look at all of my apps. Where's
my goodness.
No, this is the life of a hardware hacker, David.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here you go. It's Dave.
Monthly bill.
Dave, my Raspberry Pi 4. He's running that code. Let's get it here. So all that's doing, I'll zoom in a bit so you might be able to see.
Robert wants a balena. Yeah. You gotta hit up the pre-order, Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah, the special editions are out, but we have plenty of midnight blue, I think.
So what's whizzing past on my logs here is that data that's coming off of this little device right next to me. So you can see it's 21 degrees at my desk.
So Phil, sorry, just to backtrack with the question here on how this is working. So did you need to do any kind of pairing? Like how did you get the data from that to actually...
So Bluetooth low energy there's two different types of Bluetooth. There's the old classic Bluetooth where you had to connect to something if you could. Do you remember those days? And then you can try and get the data off of it. So that is still a way of doing it. But with Bluetooth low energy, there's another way in which you can use Bluetooth, and that's by sending out these broadcasts. And the broadcast itself has a particular packet format. And, part of that is what the device identifier is and all those sort of things. But there is a section for putting some data into that actual broadcast. So you don't have to connect to the thing that's broadcasting it. All you need to do is take that packet apart and get the data bits out and formulate them. So
you don't need the PIN. You don't have to.
I don't know whether they
double authentication to the device.
I don't know whether they put it in here. Probably not. If people are interested, they can look up how to look at Bluetooth low energy packet formats. But there's like a advertisement packet section, and you can like squash some data into there. Really, not very much, but you can squash them in. So that's what this company's done. Rather than having to connect to it to get the data, you can just listen. Anything can listen to these broadcasts and then pick out the data from them.
So you could have a lot of beacons around, but you're basically filtering on the ID of that beacon. And
You can filter. Yeah, I haven't done that here. I've said any that I find.
Okay.
But yeah, you can do. Yeah.
And
Hey.
did you have to tell it to listen somehow? Is there some way that you're like
Yeah. So
telling the
if you
Pi
look
to
at the
listen?
code, so the code is saying it brings in that GitHub code so that I can decode what that packet's doing.
Okay.
But all it's really doing is just sat listening, and then when it gets some data, this is the callback that gets run to say, I found some data and this is what's in it. And it's just logging it to the screen. So you can see that's the result of that Python code running. Oh, sorry, I didn't know my screen wasn't on. So you can see here it is just running the please go and get data and do that forever. And this is the callback that gets run when it gets some data. And it's handling it. That's one of the methods that comes in with this Ruby's tag sensor package.
Hey Phil, I got a quick request for you. Since we're about 30 minutes in and a bunch of people have joined, do you mind recapping like what are we doing today?
Okay, so we put out a blog post about something that we've been doing, which is called balenaBlocks, and this diagram I think tells it best. It's some pieces of functionality that you can put alongside your own bespoke code to add functionality to your app and reduce the friction to IoT app development.
Perfecto.
Wow.
So what we were going to do today, I've got a little Bluetooth low energy temperature, pressure, humidity sensor. It relies on my phone listening to it so that I can see what's going on, and I don't like that. So I'm going to use this Python library that they've also made so that a Raspberry Pi can listen to it. And that's what this is doing. This is my Raspberry Pi listen to those Bluetooth low energy announcements about the temperature. Look down here, temperature. And then what we're going to do now, hopefully, is we're going to show how do we go from an app that's printing something to a console to getting some data that we can see in a nice graph package. And that's what we'll try and do live whilst you lot mock me.
All right. Well, I think we're probably ready for the mocking if you want to get going. I do have a quick question that
What was the
has
tap
rolled
I
in.
mentioned?
Yeah, AB, do you mind clarifying a little bit? I didn't hear a tap. What
A tap in Britain is a faucet. So, right, what I want to do then is talk about the blocks that I'm going to try and use. So I want to show some data in a graph, and that's what number one block does, dashboard. So dashboard is using Grafana, and that's the executable at the heart of the block. But the special powers that we add to it, that wrapper code, what it's going to do is it's going to find any container that's running influx database, and it will interrogate the database. As long as I call it InfluxDB in my Docker Compose, it will interrogate that database and it will find out what fields are in it, and then it will create me a dashboard automatically based on the fields in that database. And we give you in our README, we give you the pieces of code that you want to put in. So this is just Docker Compose stuff that I'm putting in. So if I go to my Docker Compose now, all I've got is the sensor code that I've brought in on my Python. So I can just paste in that, and I'm going to, because I'm doing it for a Raspberry Pi 4, I can change the tag so that I get the right one. So this is balenaBlocks dashboard is the block that I'm going to bring in, and then the tag is the device architecture that I want. I can also see that it's going to use a volume to persist stuff, so I can steal the volume as well.
While you're doing that real quickly, AB did clarify it was the tape in the beacon that allowed moisture.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. So it's I don't know if you have it all around the world. In Britain we have they make jackets and trousers and things out of something called Gore-Tex, and it's like a breathable waterproof fabric, so if you run around the sweat can get out and you don't get super hot and uncomfortable, but the rain can't come in. And they've basically used that idea here, so they can let enough humidity to come in to test the humidity, but without the rain pouring in and shorting out the electronics. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how waterproof they say. I think, if it sat in a puddle, it'd still drown. But as long as I'm going to lob it outside in a minute, and
Well, if we could find out.
Yeah. So that's dashboard. But you saw that its superpower is that it will find an InfluxDB running in the same app, and it will auto configure for that. So we want to bring in some InfluxDB next. And the way we can do that is, that's not a block. That's just the reason we didn't make it a block is because you can plonk InfluxDB onto your app, and it does exactly what you want it to do. There's like no superpowers we can add to it that will make it any better. So
Great
we'll
job,
just bring.
Influx, folks.
Yeah.
You're right. Right. Yeah, they do good stuff.
I'm totally leaning in now because this is the part where I am at on the project I was working on. I was telling Phil about yesterday. I'm like, okay, now what? Oh my gosh.
So all I've done is brought in Influx from Docker. I've had to do the SHA because I want a particular device architecture. So this is the SHA for Raspberry Pi 4, but I don't need to do anything more than that. It's got a volume because it's obviously got to put the database data somewhere. So I've added that to my volumes. So that's Influx database and dashboard. Now, this is where it gets a little bit funky and interesting. If you look at my code, I don't put my data anywhere. I'm just putting it out to the console. So I want to get that into the database. That's the next thing to try and achieve. But this is where we're reducing the friction to application development. I don't want to write database code, and I might change my database, to a different time series database at some point in the future. So I don't want to have to maintain that either. So what I want to do is use our next block that we're going to use, which is called connector. And this is where Andrew's going to get interested because he was starting to do this yesterday. And what connector does is it uses Telegraph. And Telegraph is an executable that you can configure to say, I've got a data source over here and I've got a data sink somewhere else, and I want to connect the two without having to worry about the implementation myself. The thing with it is you have to configure all of those inputs and outputs. So with a balena block, we obviously try and take that pain away. It will automatically, within reason, it will automatically find sources of data and places you could put them and join the two together. So we already know what our where we're going to put it. We're going to put it into InfluxDB. And if I whiz down data sources, I go to data sinks. So InfluxDB, the connector block will look at all of the containers that are running on your device when you deploy your app, and it will find any instances of Influx database for you, and it will connect them up. So all I have to do is make sure my container is called InfluxDB, which if you look, it is InfluxDB.
Yep.
Which means connector will automatically find that and push any data it gets sent to there. So I don't have to do anything for that. That's an automatic thing that the block's going to do. But I do have to think about how I'm going to use how I'm going to tell connector about the data that I've got. And we'll come on to that in just a sec. What I'm going to do is...
Oh, sorry. Can I ask one quick question? Sorry to interrupt.
Indeed.
Do those containers need to run privileged then in order to peek into into each other and grab the data, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, not all of them. So the sensor one I've got privileged, and I've also got host networking because that's grabbing raw data from the Bluetooth device on the Raspberry Pi, so that needs host networking, and it's also it's got a capability that I've added in the Docker file.
Gotcha.
All of this code we'll put up on GitHub so people can look into all of this in more depth.
Yep,
That one needs to be privileged. The other ones don't. It depends on the block and what it's doing. So dashboard doesn't need to be privileged because it can just go and find versions of Influx and interrogate them. The connector does because it goes to the supervisor API and ask what services are running on this device and go through them and try and work out what they are. It's doing a bit more work there. So it does, and that's why we've got this API label as well, so that we can use the API without having to authenticate in some other way. Perfect. So I've brought in that connector block. And then the last thing I need to do, Would it help if I draw a diagram here?
Depends on how good your drawing skills are.
Say yes.
Worse than Chris.
We'll go with a yes.
I'll tell you what, I'll do it super quick. So if we've got a Raspberry Pi and we've got my Bluetooth device here, and it's going to send out some data with the temperature, and this is
Man,
really?
this is not your first rodeo.
Oh, look at this.
So right, we started off with a piece of bespoke code, and that was doing what do we call that? The sensor.
Well, I think we're going to need to do a draw off at some point where we all have
Draw
to draw
off.
something.
I'm out. No way.
And then what we did, the first thing we did is we said we want a dashboard so that we can look at the data that we pull in, and I'm going to color that something different to show it's a block. And that will give us, so at the moment this is just doing console login and we can't see anything. So the reason we want dashboard is because it's going to give us something graphical that our users of the app is going to go and see, and that's on HTTP 80, let's say. Following?
Yes.
So
Cool.
far, so good.
So dashboard looks at a database, namely InfluxDB, to get its data, and it will automatically generate us something based on the things it finds. So this is Influx. By the way, if my keyboard suddenly looks like I'm typing either nothing or loads, it's because I've got some sort of glitch. Every now and again, my keyboard stops responding.
That's a feature.
So this is like a two-way thing where dashboard interrogates the database and then creates you a dashboard and shows you your metrics. So this is where we've got there, and then we made a connector block. We brought that into our Docker Compose, and we will see that that's because that is what feeds the database with data. So the thing we obviously need to do now is work out how we're going to get the sensor block to give the data to connector. And really this is there's two main ways. It's either a push or a pull, and you need to think about what your sensor's actually doing in with its job. Are you going to the sensor to say, please tell me the values, or is the sensor telling you its values periodically? So some things like a project that's on Hub is internet speed test. You don't want to go and ask the internet speed tester to go and test the speed. You just want it to periodically go and do a speed test and tell you the results. So that's just like a push. Whereas some things like Balena Sense, you want to go and say, please go and tell me the temperature now, and it will come back and tell you the temperature, and then you can log it. So that's the sort of two ways, push and a pull. The two ways that you can do that with connector block that make it automatic, if you expose your data with a HTTP server on port 7575, connector will automatically find that piece of code, and it will go and interrogate it and pull the data out, and it will periodically hit that HTTP sensor and say, some more data please, and put it in the database. But if you remember this thing that I was talking about, this little doody thing, it sends out a beacon every 5 seconds to say, here's the data. So we're going to get that data into our Python code, and we want to push it to connector. We don't want to be asked for it. We want to tell connector when to put it in the database. So the way we're going to do that is with MQTT. And I've even included the little bit of Docker code that you want there, so that we can just plonk this straight in like that. And then on my diagram, this is getting good now.
You're literally dropping in functionality.
Yeah.
As promised.
So that's not ours. That's MQTT. We can't take the glory for that.
AD is a MQTT fan, appears.
Okay, so what that means is now we can do the last bit of arrowing. Our sensor can push to MQTT. Connector will find MQTT for itself. So we don't need to tell it about that. It's just because they're on the same device, it will find it. And that's where we can now see our pathway through the device. The BLE sensor will send out some data and we'll receive it. But instead of just printing it to the console, we'll also fling it MQTT. Connector will pull that data in and put it into Influx database. And the dashboard will automatically find all of those fields and make us a dashboard that presents it over HTTP. Any questions?
No.
But I'm going to do some
No,
coding.
I'm mind blown. So
Well, it doesn't work yet, David. So let's.
well, okay.
At
Well,
the
you know
moment,
what? I'm mind blown with your Google drawing skills. Like
So,
like the viewers.
So the thing we're going to need to do is, if we look at our drawing, we need to do this bit where we send it to MQTT. So we're going to need to bring in, and this is where if I start making loads of mistakes and stuff, then somebody might need to talk over me while I try and think. MQTT, pretty sure it's like that. And then we can import it. Dot MQTT dot client. You can tell I've thought about this before as MQTT. So that will bring us in the package that allows us to send data to MQTT really quickly. And then we need to make a client equals MQTT dot client. You have to give it an identifier just in case lots of things try and make a connection all at once to your device. They won't in this case, but it's good practice anyway.
Yeah. Now, while you're doing this, I'm just looking at the clock. Do you want to focus on that? And we have Alan discuss a couple of the blocks that he is working on, or do you?
I don't think I'm going to be too long.
Okay.
If you bear with me, and then I'll let you know. I mean, you can talk over me while I'm doing it. That's fine. But in a minute, we are going to try and push stuff to the device.
If we're about a minute away from pushing, then let's hold on. Alan, hang tight there.
Okay, I can do long version, short version, so let me know.
I mean, why not, Alan? What have you been working on, man?
Yeah.
Well, I just say in the short version that one of the things that strikes me here is this is really close to what we have in balenaSense. balenaSense basically takes readings from a sensor. Usually it's a BNE 680 temperature humidity sensor that's wired into the Pi. And then it stores that data in Influx, and then it reports on it in a Grafana dashboard. So I think we can all say, yep, there's the sensor. So I think that sounds a lot like what Phil is doing right now. So of course, we wanted to blockify balenaSense, and that's one of the projects that I'm working on to basically turn it into kind of what Phil is doing here, add those tiny pieces, take out all of the custom stuff that now can be accomplished through a block, and just refine the little pieces that connect it, kind of like what Phil is doing here. So minimal custom code and really just plumbing of blocks, moving data around.
Right, last bits, I reckon. I probably just need to sanity check it. So let me tell you what I think I'm doing. Is we get that data. I don't want that bit anymore. So we get this data. I've made an MQTT client, and then when we get the data, we connect to the MQTT that's going to be running on our device, remember? And then I try and publish some data. And there is a bit here. If you look in the repo of Connector, it does tell you this. You need to send the data to the sensors topic, because that's the one that Connector will automatically listen to. So as long as we connect to the local host, so the device itself, and we use the sensors topic, and then we dump our data out as JSON, and then this little bit's just saying, just wait until you know it's been published on the queue before you disconnect and go around again. So that's that. I reckon we've brought in that. I think we've got all of the bits around Docker Compose. I don't need to do any of that. Why don't we suck it and see?
Oh man, moment of truth. And then I have
so remember all of my apps. Look at these apps. Look at them.
Oh, man. Sneaky shot in there.
Oh,
So we want to do a balena. Oh, not in the right directory.
See some interesting names there. I'm not going to comment on.
Go for it. What do you want to know? Oh no, I did it in Sandbox, didn't I? What do you want to know?
No, I'm just. I like some of the names. I see balenaCam.
Oh, that's John's.
It's pretty cool.
That's John's app that he added me to try and fix. What am I doing?
I'm just marveling at this strange
Push,
operating
baby.
system that you're
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing over here.
It's the
What?
future, John. It's the
best
future, mate.
operating system.
Right, let's cross our fingers.
All right.
So we're going to push that. That's going to go up to the same. It's a Raspberry Pi 4 that I'm running this on, and that's what you saw that was kicking out some output earlier. Where's my window? This one.
We'll have to
This
try
one.
this on the
Question.
800.
Yeah, try it on the Pi 800. Absolutely.
So
The
I'll,
question is, which of those pies? You had about 10 of them on the desk.
oh yeah. Well,
How do you keep track of which device is actually running which workload?
so normally I will. I mean, I called this one Dave, but that's just because I'm a child at heart. But normally I try and call things, my devices, something that means something to me. So Phil's thin. That's not particularly descriptive. When I've got loads of the same sort of device, let me find an app that's got. Normally, I'll call them something that means something to me, so that I can go and find them really quickly. So that's my son's device. That's the one that's got the Pi display connected to it.
Cool.
So I try and track things like that. My Nook is called. Oh, that's the wrong one. My Nook's normally called Nook. Oh, that's Balena ID. Nook ID. Yeah, Nook.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I got it. I figured it out. I see what
You're a
you did
sensible man, Phil.
I am. I'm also not a very sensible man. It's a duality. But Dave, he's running my sensor, and we'll see as soon as my too many windows. As soon as my so Alan, sorry, you were saying about Balena Sense, your blockifying.
Yeah, blockifying Balena Sense, and I was saying that it bears a striking resemblance to what you're doing here today. Very.
That's like one of the things, isn't it, that that gave birth to the idea of blocks or these bits of function. It's because with a lot of the Balena Labs apps we made, you were starting to see the same patterns again. So we've made Balena Sense, and that gets some temperature data and it puts it into a database, and we draw some charts on the database. Oh, so my internet speed tester, oh, that gets some data and it puts it into. So we just keep seeing this repeated functionality, and that's like one of the big things in Balena is to spot patterns and make things that will automate something if you can spot a pattern of something happening. And that applies here, that we saw a pattern happening, so we made blocks that automate that for you. And you're right, it's the same in lots of apps.
I have a question for you both. In the example of Sense with the BME 680, and then in this example with the little Gore-Tex wrapped sensor, if you have multiple sensors, do you have to create multiple instances of this, or do you just combine it all into one?
With Balena Sense, Alan, you've looked at this more recently than me. It will go through and try and find what is connected to the device and take the data off of whatever is connected. Okay. If you connected more than one sensor, I don't know whether it would take the first one or whether it would take all of them. Do you know, Alan?
I believe
I'm guessing the first.
Yeah, and the way that it's set up now, it would take the first one. But I think that's something that we'll also look at to be selectable or to have multiple ones. I mean, all that's certainly on the table. But right now, yeah, it takes the first one it finds.
I mean, this app that I'm making.
I was going to say, each one has a unique ID. I mean, is it able to pick up a little bit of that information as part of that process, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, certainly. It's not difficult to do, but I guess the idea with Balena Sense is that right now it has kind of that single purpose of graphing that particular sensor's data. But I think the other thing about this is that these projects like Balena Sense, and even the one Phil's doing, it's just a great starting point for anybody looking to do any change themselves. If they want to have multiple sensors or they want to be able to choose, it's easy enough with what we've provided for somebody to take that and make all those changes themselves and learn in the process.
Cool.
Yeah, I often think back to previous corporate life that I've led, often you'll have a good idea, but people don't want you to spend time or budget on doing it. Like if they can't see the return easily, then they won't give you the sort of leeway to try and go and do it and experiment. So something like this, I often think that if I could have knocked up an app like this super quick within an hour and gone and shown some of those people, look, here it is, I've done it. I mean, it's not production ready or whatever, it might need some fettling, but being able to show somebody and then talk about the thing that you've built gets you so much further than going and trying to draw diagrams and talk to these people and get a bit of budget.
Absolutely.
What was the other ones that you were I wanted to talk to you about balenaCam as well, Alan.
Yeah, I was going to just ask about that one.
Oh, yeah. Well, balenaCam, I guess for those that don't know, it's basically a way to stream your camera from a Raspberry Pi. And right now it is, and the big thing about that is that it also uses WebRTC or Motion JPEG. But right now it's not using any blocks. But when we look at the functionality of balenaCam, we see a lot of opportunity to blockify it and create blocks that would be very useful in a variety of projects, like thinking out loud, a capture block, a streaming block, and so forth. So those are some of the projects that are underway to take something like balenaCam, make useful blocks out of that. And a lot of that was spurred on by this ongoing project that I've shown before. This is the latest iteration.
Oh, hang on a minute. Let me get that.
Hang on, don't crash Charlie the Unicorn. Hang on 2 seconds.
Oh, wait.
He's coming.
I
will interrupt you when something exciting happens.
Okay. Yep.
Here we go.
Here he comes.
Come on, Charlie.
Where are you, Charlie?
Very close. Imminent.
Oh, Alan, you could have shown your device.
If he starts to show it, then it'll finish.
Right, go on, Alan.
Here, I'll show it in the small window. You don't need to zoom in on me. Keep that on the screen. I'll get in close here. But I added
Charlie.
Oh, there he is.
There he is. All right, now hang on. Let me get Alan zoomed in. All right, go ahead, show that thing.
This is the latest iteration of the negative viewer, and I added a screen. But the main reason, and this is not finished, it's still a little bare at the top. It needs some finishing off. But the main reason I wanted to show that is it's one of the items that made us think about blockifying balenaCam, because this device uses balenaCam, and adding the screen also adds in another block that we have, which is called FBCP, which is a frame buffer block. So now we've identified with just this project that I came up with separately a lot of blocks that we could use in completing that project and making it easier to build, and thus making it something that other people could adapt for whatever purpose they want. I just needed a way to view the camera in a screen and negate the image, and blocks were a great answer for that.
So we've got some services starting to come down to the device. MQTT will be downloaded. I think it's like 7 meg. So that's normally the first one that will appear.
All right. While that's coming down, can we grab a quick question from the audience? AB is asking, what is a good way if I want to stream video outside of a LAN to prevent lag? I'm not sure that I have an answer. Alan, Phil, you have any experience with that? Streaming.
Depends if we're talking about with balenaCam or we're talking in general. I mean, you can do it like the Kerberos project is an example of something you can deploy from Hub today and attach a camera to a device and see it over the public URL, the device URL. So that's a way. If you're talking more architecturally, then WebRTC is one of those things that you need to look into. I think the Kerberos people, Cedric put a post up about WebRTC recently that was quite good. I don't know if you want to find that quickly, David.
Yeah, I'm grabbing the URL right now. Let me drop that in for you in 1 second, AB. So here's our blog post on it, and I want to see if our blog post actually has the deploy with Balena button. It sure does. Let's grab that, drop that in. Yeah, this is a good starting point. And then the repo itself.
Were there more questions?
That was the only question I had seen. Well, there is one from MyShotJR about can the Pi 800 run PowerShell? I think we owe him an answer on that one.
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, the Pi 800 in this incarnation here, I don't believe it even runs DOS. I think it's running some kind of proprietary OS from 1981, which is strange for a Pi 800. But
that's crying out for, you know, an overhaul. But not just one. You can put like 5 Pi 4s inside that thing.
I think maybe more. But
In
like 10.
Do some.
I have a question for the hardware hackers in the room, and it's
Okay.
more of like a long game question. But clearly, like, it's pretty exciting to think about all the functionality of blocks and all the different ones folks can make. And, you know, we have our list here at Balena of ones that we're experimenting on, things in R&D at the moment. But what are future plans for community members who are like, hey, you know what? I want to make one. Like, what can they start doing, start thinking about to get more involved?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to do today, if you're really keen, is to find us on the forums and just tell us your ideas. We'll be excited to know what people are trying to do, but also we'd be quite keen to help you if you need help getting going with it. Yeah, so that's the GitHub repo. But I think the first thing to do is go into the forums and let's talk about it and stick a repo up on GitHub, and we'll hack on it with you. But I mean, in longer term, I don't think it's a secret that Hub will also start exposing the blocks that we've got, so that people can find them in the same places they find apps at the moment.
Cool.
So I think connectors are almost down. What we doing? Dashboard's coming down. Influx is coming down. We're getting there. Just don't know if it'll work yet. God, it looks quite nice, doesn't it, with our device metrics? Look at that.
Yeah.
CPU's been rammed.
Yeah.
We do have
Return on investment.
a follow-up.
Colors.
Yeah, look at that. Do have a follow-up question. Can we do something like my Python code does, which reads the camera frame, something, and then pass that frame to Kerberos? Is there a
That's
web
kind of
RTC sample?
well, that's kind of what I was goading Alan into talking about next. So the balenaCam, the app has been. It hasn't had much development in the last few months. We've been focusing on other things, but now Alan's starting to take a look at it. And I think the idea is to break it out into blocks, isn't it? And some of those would be things like that you would have a RTSP stream as one of the blocks.
Yeah, I think we'd have a general streaming block, so a capture block that connects to the camera, or finds the camera and captures the images. And then a streaming block where you could kind of choose your protocol, whether that be like RTSP, WebRTC, or just MJPEG, and then probably a web browser so that you could display it, but that would be optional. When I say web browser, I mean a web server. Excuse me. So that would replicate what we have in balenaCam now, but give you a lot more options. We're also talking about maybe having some filters, so you could manipulate the image before it's streamed, which is something that I was originally looking to do with my negative viewer, because I needed to negate the image.
Whenever you say that, I always think like negative project or my negative viewer, like somebody that's harassing us in the comments.
No, that would never happen.
Oh,
Yeah.
So everything's come down. I suppose the litmus test is if I click my public URL, do I get a Grafana?
Drum roll.
Yes. Do I have an automated dashboard? Yes. Do I have temperature data coming in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Plotting over time. Yes.
Have I got pressure?
Yeah.
Yes. Have I got humidity? Yes.
Yes.
Cool, dude.
So from this point onwards, like I mean, this is pretty cool in itself. What I love about this dashboard block is when you're making an app, the first thing you want to know is exactly what I just went through there. Have we got data? And normally what you need to do is go and log into your database and go and see, have I actually got data and what does it look like? Then get your dashboard and try and work out how I'm going to plug it all up. But this gives me a summary that says, I have got data. This is the last thing that came in, 44 humidity. So it sort of takes away that initial pain point of, is my app working? Have I got data in the database or have I not? And then what it's done on top of that is tried to give us something sensible that we might want to try and actually use. And you can now start building from here. So if I log in, it would just be the default to begin with, but you can change that. I can now start taking this as a start point. I can get rid of the ones that I don't want. I don't care about acceleration. The thing's not going to move. I don't care about any of those. I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I don't care. Yeah, I care about my battery. I don't care about the data format. Some sequence numbers, I don't care. If it's moved, I don't care.
Why am I oddly inspired to want to like cut this up and auto-tune fills I don't care into some sort of song?
Phil doesn't care. So then let's do 5 minutes less of this customization. So that's temperature is Celsius. Let's do that. Edit, cool. Pressure. I can change that to pressure. What is it going to be? Hectopascals. Humidity.
My friend, you literally proof of concept humidity or environment sensor app in roughly 45 minutes.
Yeah, we got started right at about
the
20-minute mark.
So instead of having to use my Android app now to go and look at the data and my phone have to be here to capture historic data, I now have it live. And if I go and lob my temperature sensor into the garden, 2 secs.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, where did he go?
He's constantly.
Is he literally going to throw it out of the window?
Yep.
Wait, did you just literally throw that out of the window?
Yeah, it hit the fence.
Are you gonna
hopefully we're going to see.
Die. Now I want the movement.
Die. Where are we going? Temperature's going 21.
So what kind of range? That brings up a different question. What's the range on that thing then? How far is a BLE typical broadcast?
I thought you meant his throwing arm.
Yeah.
So it depends on the power output. So you can change on BLE devices. You can change the power at which the beacon's sent out with. So you obviously try and balance between getting how frequent you send them out and how powerful you send them out with the battery life. So I think that one, the battery life is something like 3 years, I think it's supposed to be.
Wow.
So
what?
It doesn't send them out, with too much power.
And how much are they again? Like, real question. I'm actually super.
Yeah, how much is that thing?
I can't remember. I'll find the link to it. It's a Ruby tag. It was quite expensive because it came from Denmark, but
fair enough.
It was duty, so I bought it.
And then you don't need like
my
a
temperature's
central
dropping.
station for it? Sorry,
we're down a degree already, and I suppose it's probably got a bit of air inside the puck itself, so it'll take a while to go down. Yeah, TX power, yes. So it's in dBms, I think the power is in.
I'm interested that it's less humid outside than inside.
It's slowly dropping. Oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
It's less, because it's like -4 today.
It's the dead of winter over there, right?
Yeah, there's no.
I guess it didn't land in a puddle.
No.
It's quite cool as well. I can see the battery, because the other thing, I know Chris had a weather station that he had in the garden, and that was also battery powered, and he started to have issues with it. And my theory was that the battery was getting too cold, and so he was starting to lose power. So it'd be quite interesting for me now I've got this to track my power level as this thing sits outside.
Yeah.
Chris, do you think he's trying to design some sort of like battery jacket now, like 3D printed batteries?
he's making his own battery, like Walter White.
He's in the workshop.
I think that's something founder Alex M would do at this point. I don't know if y'all have been following his 3D printing my own circuit board saga.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm impressed. You did it.
Nice job.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah, it worked pretty well.
that sure did. Well,
And,
anything?
Hopefully, what
else?
that shows is, that's the exact thing there that I just went through. Obviously, I'm going to be a bit quicker than some people because I know roughly what I'm doing, but it's the diagram shows it's about connecting things together and stuff just happening for you, and be that data like that, or in the case of a point of sale app, just dropping a browser block onto your app and suddenly your web app, because the browser block will find the right thing to display as well. So as long as you're exposing some HTTP data on the right port on your device, the browser will just display that for you. So it's cool things like that, superpowers to make stuff easy.
Right on. And if folks want to get the overview, you can check out the blog post.
Yep,
there.
blog post is there.
And then once again, if people want to get involved, what's the best way?
Yeah, what do you think? Start with the forums? Is that
I'd
right?
hit us up on the forums and tell us all the ideas. It might be, you don't have to come on the forums and say, I'm going to make this. You could say a really cool block would be, and then we'll make it. It will put it on our list of things to make. Or what would be really great though is if people could say, I'm going to make this and submit it, and then we can help you when you get stuck, or join in the discussion and get something that we could all use. That would be super cool.
All
Very
right.
cool.
Perfect.
I'll be there. I'm stoked.
And
thanks.
all
Phil.
of the code that you've just seen me live hack, I'll put on GitHub. So if anybody else does buy a Ruby tag, they can have this as well. We can. What we'll do actually is we'll put it as a Hub app. We'll submit it to Hub, and then you can just one-click deploy my app.
Awesome.
You hear that,
Super
Ruby?
cool.
Look at this guy.
Yeah. Look, how much do they pay you? Wow.
They should refund me, shouldn't they?
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we are good then. Thank you, Phil. Definitely appreciate it. That was super cool. Any other questions or comments? Let me check chat real quick. Doesn't look like anything else.
29
there.
euros.
29.
Really?
Not bad.
That's not too bad, especially for that.
No, I didn't pay 29 euros. Let me have a look.
Uh-oh, did you get...
Can I just wrap a BME 680 in an old jacket?
Yeah, can we?
Yeah.
It's like duct tape.
Get a
$3 wired though.
Get a $3 one off of AliExpress
And the little Gore-Tex.
I think
a little Gore-Tex, and we're good.
I think it was the shipping that was quite expensive because it comes from Denmark, I think. So it was the shipping that I got hit with.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up then, and we will see everyone next week. Any questions about blocks? Sounds like the best strategy is to start off with just drop them onto the forums for us. We'll check it out. We'll be in touch. And we're looking forward to see what the community builds. All right.
Cool.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.